Throughout history, man has felt a unique kinship with animals. The special relationship between pet and master may be based upon an unexpected link. Only recently has science begun to investigate the possibility of a psychic extrasensory connection. It is August in Wolcott, Indiana, and Bobby is lost. He became separated from his family 5 hours ago as they were moving from their old home to a new home more than 2,000 miles away. They searched for him, but not finding him, sadly had to continue on. Now abandoned, he struggles through a long journey. We would expect him to turn back along the route they have traveled, to return to his old home. But Bobby pushes forward, searching for a place he's never known. No matter how great the obstacles, Bobby travels on as though drawn by some unseen beacon. Researchers call this side trailing, from the word psychic. It's often confused with homing, but it's quite another phenomenon. Homing occurs when an animal is taken away from a familiar place and finds its way back following normal sensory cues. A dog may follow a trail or remember familiar landmarks. But in verified cases of side trailing, there is no explanation other than ESP. 6 months later, Bobby arrives in Portland, Oregon. Finally, he's reunited with those he loves. Was Bobby guided by emotional signals from his family? Could it be that extrasensory perception was the magnet that pulled the animal and his masters together? The possibilities of animal ESP could have a profound effect on all of us. Some forms of communication could be drastically altered, maybe even become obsolete. Stories such as Bobby's have intrigued scientists for years. His case is among hundreds examined by Dr. J.B. Rhine, America's Dean of Parapsychology. For Dr. Rhine, such examinations are a labor of love.
There's a great deal of evidence that there is an extrasensory exchange between animals and men. We'd like to have more evidence. We'd like to keep the question open rather than making it a decisive conclusion at this time, but there's a great deal of evidence on it.
Come on!
Anecdotes of side trailing are not conclusive proof of animal ESP, but they do suggest that the bond between some masters and pets may be so deep that even distance cannot separate them. While a director at the Rockland Research Institute in New York, Dr. Hans Esser searched for laboratory evidence of this unspoken link between masters and their dogs. Each dog in the study was placed in an isolated soundproof chamber. There, his physical activity and heart rate were recorded. Dr. Esser selected dogs with a close relationship with their masters, feeling these teams would most likely demonstrate an ESP link. The master was then isolated in a separate soundproof room.
So we will try in this experiment to replicate the bond established between you and your dog, and in general between master and dog. Try to experience it as fully as possible so that the emotion you feel and you generate can be picked up by your dog.
The only possible connection between master and dog would be ESP.
Okay, the dog's lying down now. We can begin. Do you mark?
Yeah.
Start. You'll have the first event. Now.
The master was shown a series of slides. Some were pleasant subjects, evoking a positive reaction. Others were disturbing. Would the dog perceive a change in his master's mood?
The dog is perceiving probably emotional reaction from the master. This, in our thinking, takes place through the oldest part of our brain. This brain is non-verbal. It does not talk, but it does form the seat of our emotions.
Although this experiment is a preliminary investigation, a pilot study, Dr. Esser did record a correlation in a few instances. He continued with phase 2.
Gary, I do want you now to imagine exactly the episode of pleasure that you had this morning with Solomon.
and in your mind recollect the whole event in the park.
Finding laboratory proof of animal ESP is most difficult. This study is among the first to begin the search and raised an even greater question.
What I am investigating is actually the so-called web of life, the relationships between every single living being in the large society of this earth. It is nowadays an ecological concept. How do we all hang together?
While the study did not provide proof, it had set the theme for our search and would lead us to further fascinating evidence. Beyond emotions, might our animals also perceive when we are having an extrasensory or psychic experience? During times of great stress, people have reported having out-of-body experiences, feeling literally that they can leave their own form, hover above it, or travel to other places. Such reports are not uncommon. But some people, like Sherry Green, feel they can actually control the phenomenon. Sherry says she's able to have an out-of-body experience at will. Could her pet kitten respond to her experience? And if so, would this indicate animal ESP? A classic experiment tested this question. In search of reunited key investigators from the Psychical Research Foundation of Durham, North Carolina. Researchers take Sherry and her kitten to an observation room half a mile away. The kitten will remain here for the experiment.
And this is where Jill's going to be. And Johnny's going to be charting Jill's movements and also the number of times that she meows. And this is where we want you to focus your experience.
Sherry returns to the lab to have her out-of-body experience. The experiment is supervised by Dr. John Hartwell.
Sherry, we're plugging in the last of these wires here now so that we can learn something about the physiology of this experience. In addition to how the animal responds, we want to know something about how it is that your body responds.
We began to pursue these studies because the subjective nature of the out-of-body experience begs for that kind of research. For in this experience, a person feels like he is out of his body. He feels like he is out there and perceives the world from a different point of view, and perhaps he affects the world. Now,
in the critical moments before the experiment, Sherry's brain waves and pulse are closely monitored. She meditates and prepares for her experience. A half a mile away, the kitten is placed on the observation grid. She paces restlessly in the alien, unfamiliar surroundings. The experimenters wonder if the kitten's behavior will change during Sherry's experience. As Sherry meditates, she signals her experience is about to begin.
That's 10:02.
Sherry now feels she is leaving her body to visit her kitten. She attempts to calm and reassure it with her presence, to make it feel more secure in a strange place. Each trial lasted several minutes. Over 33 trials, the researchers found a striking correlation. Whenever the subject reported an out-of-body experience, the kitten became measurably quieter and calmer. Its behavior had changed dramatically. Whether the kitten actually saw or felt a presence, no one can say. But during these out-of-body experiences, something was happening.
we tried people, animals, physical sensors, various electromagnetic detectors. The only consistent evidence that we found was the behavior of this one kitten. The fact that the kitten gave the only consistent results there is intriguing. We don't know what that means, but it does seem to us that it is very important. And we would like to try to go further and see if we can come to interpret that way.
If further study reveals that animals have psychic abilities, might some species be able to use them to alter their world?